The twin suns of Arvin 9 were setting, painting the dusty streets in gold and orange. The small alien town of Vera's Edge was quiet, except for the soft sound of wind moving through broken metal stalls. A little alien girl, no older than 10, walked barefoot through the dust, her thin green skin pale under the dim light. Her large eyes, glowing faint blue, scanned the ground carefully, searching for scraps or dropped food. Her name was Leary. She was small even for her kind, with tiny curved horns and a soft cloth wrapped around her shoulders. Her stomach growled softly, but she didn't stop. Life on Vera's Edge had never been kind to her or her mother. Just as she turned into a narrow alley, something shiny caught her eye. It wasn't junk or metal scrap, it was smooth, square and dark brown. Leary crouched down, brushing away the dust. Her fingers touched something soft and strange. She lifted it, her eyes widening. It was heavier than it looked. She had found a wallet. Curious, she flipped it open. Inside were flat papers with strange symbols and a small shining card with a human face printed on it. Humans were rare here. Some said they were dangerous. Others said they were heroes, but Leary had never met one. Her heart beat faster. On the card was a name written in Terran script, Captain James Cole. She whispered the name, tasting the foreign words on her tongue. Human name, she murmured, glancing around. There were few travelers from off-world lately. Especially humans, the war between empires had scared most away. But if this human was here, maybe he was still nearby. She held the wallet close and looked up toward the horizon. Beyond the town lay the spaceport ruins, old, half-working, filled with rusting ships and smugglers. Maybe that was where the human had gone. As she walked, her mind raced. She didn't know much about humans except what her mother used to say. "Humans are strange, child," her mother would whisper. "They are fierce, but they have hearts that burn bright. They can destroy or save, and no one ever knows which." When she reached the edge of the ruins, she saw it, an old cargo ship, gray and battered, its engines softly humming, and standing near it, his back turned, was a tall figure. Broad shoulders, dark jacket, short hair. He looked so different, his skin pale, his posture straight and sure. Leary hesitated, clutching the wallet tightly. Every instinct told her to run, but something stronger kept her there. The face on the card. It was the same as the man in front of her. She stepped forward carefully, the dust crunching under her feet. The human turned at the sound, his eyes, sharp blue, met hers, and for a moment both froze. He looked surprised, maybe even confused. Leary slowly lifted the wallet in both hands. "Her small fingers trembling, sir," she said softly, her voice echoing slightly in the dry air. "You dropped this," James blinked, then took a step closer. His tone was gentle, cautious. "That's mine," he said, accepting the wallet. "Thank you, kid." He gave her a small smile, but there was tiredness in his face. Leary didn't move. Her heart thumped fast. She wanted to turn away, but her mother's face flashed in her mind. Weak, pale, struggling to breathe in their small metal home. Before she could stop herself, she spoke again, her voice shaking but clear. "Sir, my mother needs help," James frowned. "Help? What kind of help?" "She's sick," Leary said quickly, words tumbling out. "No doctor will come, they say we can't pay, but you..." She stopped, biting her lip. "You are human, right?" "Humans, they fix things, they heal people, don't they?" James stood silent, the wind blew between them, carrying the dry scent of dust and metal. He looked at the little girl again, at the desperate light in her eyes. He could have walked away. This wasn't his problem. But something in her voice made him pause. "How far?" he asked quietly. Leary's eyes lit up. "Not far, sir, please." "Follow me." She turned and began walking, glancing back every few steps to see if he followed. After a moment's hesitation, James sighed and followed her into the fading light. The sky deepened to violet as they moved through the narrow alleys, passing broken machines and dim stalls. Leary's small form led the way confidently, despite the shadows. When they reached a small metal hut at the edge of town, she stopped. The door creaked open and a faint blue light glowed inside. Leary turned to him, her voice soft but full of hope. "Please, sir," she whispered. "She's inside." James stepped forward, feeling a strange chill run through him. He didn't yet know it, but this small act of kindness would change both their lives forever. Inside, he saw the faint figure of an alien woman lying weakly on a cot, her breathing shallow. Her eyes opened slowly as she whispered, "Leary, who is that?" Leary smiled faintly, her eyes wet. "He's a human, Mama, and I think he's going to help us." James stood silent, his hand still holding the edge of the door. The hum of his ship faded behind him, and for the first time in years, something stirred in his chest, a feeling he thought he had lost long ago. The story of one human and a dying alien mother had just begun, and the galaxy would never forget what came next. The small metal hut was dimly lit by a cracked energy cell. Its soft blue glow flickered over the walls, throwing long, shaky shadows across the floor. The air smelled faintly of rust and medicine, an old kind. The kind people used when they couldn't afford real treatment. James stood quietly near the doorway, his tall frame almost filling the space. Leary's mother lay on the cot, her breathing shallow but steady. She was thin, her skin dull with illness, and yet her eyes, deep violet, still held a faint spark. "Thank you for coming," she whispered weakly, her voice barely audible. "My daughter, she shouldn't have bothered you." James shook his head slowly. "She didn't bother me," he said gently. "She found something that belonged to me. I owe her for that." Leary stood beside her mother, clutching her mother's hand tightly. "He said he'll help, Mama," she said softly. Hope trembling in her tone. Her mother gave a faint smile. "Humans don't stay long here," she murmured. "Why would he help strangers like us?" James knelt beside her bed, placing the wallet on the small table next to her. "Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it," he said simply. "Now it's my turn." The woman's eyes studied him for a long moment. She seemed to be deciding whether to trust him. Finally, she gave a slow nod. "My name is Sarah, and you've already done more than most in this town." Leary moved closer, her small eyes wide with curiosity. "Can you fix her, sir?" she asked quietly. James took a deep breath. "I'm not a doctor," he said, "but I know a few things about medicine. And I've got some supplies on my ship." Leary's face brightened instantly. "Then we can save her." But Sarah shook her head faintly. "No," she whispered. "The disease is old, spreading fast. There's a reason no doctor would come. They fear it. They fear me." James frowned. "Fear you? Why?" Sarah looked away. "They say it's a curse from the old wars, a sickness that only touches those who were exposed to human tech long ago," she said bitterly. "They think my body carries poison, that I brought this on myself." James's jaw tightened. He had heard rumors like this before, about alien colonies blaming humans for old radiation zones, about hatred that never really died. "I don't believe in curses," he said firmly. "Only in mistakes and how we fix them." He stood up. His decision made, "I'll go to my ship, get what I have, and try." Leary grabbed his hand suddenly, her small fingers trembling. "You promise?" He looked down at her, her eyes glistening with fear and hope all at once. "Yeah," he said softly, "I promise." Outside, the night air was colder. The twin moons hung low, their light silver on the broken roofs. James walked quickly toward the ruins where his ship waited. But his mind was heavy. He wasn't sure he could save Sarah, but he couldn't walk away either. When he reached his ship, the door hissed open. Inside was a small medbay, basic but stocked. He pulled open drawers, grabbing medkits, scanners, and injectors filled with nanites. But then his comm device crackled. "Captain Cole." "Report your location," said a sharp voice. It was his command officer from the human relief fleet. James froze. "Still on Arvin 9, he replied. "Had some engine trouble, might stay a while." "Stay careful," the voice warned. "Locals there still blame humans for the sickness." "Avoid contact," he hesitated, then turned off the comm. "Too late for that," he muttered. When he returned to the hut, Leary was waiting outside, her small eyes scanning the darkness nervously. "You came back," she whispered, relief filling her tone. "I said I would," James replied, stepping inside. He set his bag down beside Sarah's bed, pulling out the scanner. It beeped softly as it passed over her chest, showing weak readings. He frowned. "Your organs are shutting down slowly, but if I stabilize your cells, we might slow it." Sarah smiled faintly. "You sound like a man who's lost before." Leary turned to him quietly. "Sir," she said, "you kept your promise." He smiled a little. "It's not over yet, kid," she hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. "There's something else I didn't tell you." James looked down. "What is it?" Leary's eyes glistened with tears. "They'll come tonight," she whispered. "The town guards. They said if my mother isn't dead by tomorrow." "They'll burn our home," James froze, his heart pounding. "What?" She nodded, her voice trembling. "They think she'll spread the sickness to others. They want to stop it." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the sound of the wind outside. Then James slowly reached for his weapon holster, his eyes cold now. "Then we won't be here when they come," he said. Leary stared up at him, fear and hope mixing once again that night. The human who had come only to recover his lost wallet was now preparing to save 2 lives and maybe to defy an entire world. The twin moons hung high above Vera's edge, pale and cold. The wind whispered through the cracks of the metal huts. Carrying the scent of smoke from faraway fires, James stood outside Sarah's home, his eyes scanning the shadows beyond the narrow street. Every few seconds, the faint hum of his ship's engines echoed in the distance, hidden and ready. Inside the hut, Leary was packing what little they had, some dry food, a faded blanket, and a small carved pendant that belonged to her mother. Her small hands trembled as she worked. She looked at her mother, still resting on the cot. Breathing weakly but alive, Sarah opened her eyes slowly. "Leary, why are you moving everything?" The little girl froze, then looked at James, who stepped inside. His face was calm but serious. "We're leaving," he said quietly. "Tonight," Sarah tried to sit up, wincing from the effort. "You can't," she whispered. "They'll see you. The guards patrol the alleys after dark. They'll shoot if they see a human." James crouched beside her bed, meeting her tired eyes. "If we stay, they'll burn this place down," he said. "I'm not letting that happen." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. "You don't even know us," she murmured. "Why risk your life?" James gave a faint smile. "Because I'm human," he said simply, "and sometimes that still means something." Leary stopped what she was doing, staring at him in quiet awe. Outside, the wind picked up, blowing dust across the street somewhere far off. A siren echoed, low and distant. But growing louder, James's jaw tightened. "They're coming early," he said, standing quickly. "Leary, help your mother. We have to move now." Leary rushed to her mother's side, helping her sit up. Sarah groaned softly, her body weak but her will still burning. "I can walk. Just don't let them take her," she whispered. James wrapped his jacket around her shoulders, supporting her weight carefully. "I won't," he said. "Not while I'm breathing." They slipped out through the back of the hut, moving quietly through the maze of dark alleys. The dust swirled around their feet, muffling their steps. From the main road came the sound of armored boots and heavy vehicles. The glow of red lights flickered between the buildings. James whispered, "Stay close. Keep your heads down." They reached an old service tunnel behind a broken fuel station. James led them inside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The air was thick and cold, the walls damp with years of neglect. Leary clung to his arm, her small voice trembling. "Will they follow us here?" "Maybe," he said. "But I've got a few tricks left." Behind them, the muffled sound of metal doors being kicked open echoed through the alleys. Voices shouted orders in the alien tongue, harsh and angry. "They're spreading out," Sarah whispered weakly. "They know we're gone." James stopped for a second, closing his eyes. He pulled a small device from his belt, a signal beacon. He pressed it once and a faint blue pulse blinked in his hand. "What's that?" Leary asked, eyes wide. "Insurance," James said. "If we don't make it out in 10 minutes, it'll call my ship here." Leary's jaw dropped. "Your ship can fly here?" "It can do a lot more than that," he said with a faint smirk. They moved deeper through the tunnel, the sound of the guards fading behind them. But as they reached the end, James froze. Light spilled through a crack in the wall ahead, and voices were echoing from the other side. "They've cut us off," he whispered, his mind racing. Sarah gripped his arm weakly. "Go. Take Leary, I can't run." He shook his head sharply. "Not a chance." He looked around quickly, then spotted a narrow maintenance shaft above. "There," he said. "Leary, climb first." "Help your mother after." The girl nodded quickly, climbing up the rusted bars. Her small hands worked fast despite her fear. When she reached the top, she turned and reached down for her mother. James lifted Sarah carefully. Pushing her upward, she grunted softly, her strength fading. But she managed to grab Leary's hand and pull herself up. Just as James was about to climb, the tunnel behind him filled with light. Harsh red, blinding. "There." "The human," a voice shouted. James cursed under his breath. He pulled his blaster free, aiming into the light. The first shot hissed through the air, hitting a wall of metal and scattering sparks. The guards ducked for cover, shouting in confusion. "Go!" he yelled. "Run to the end and keep going." Leary screamed, "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." He lied, firing again. The tunnel filled with smoke and dust. Each shot echoed through the narrow passage. He moved back slowly, step by step, then grabbed a small cylinder from his belt. A flash grenade. He pulled the pin and threw it behind him. A blinding white light exploded. Shaking the walls, the guards cried out. Blinded and disoriented, James climbed the bars fast. Ignoring the pain in his arms, he reached the top and pushed himself through the hatch. Collapsing beside Leary and Sarah, his lungs burned, but he smiled weakly. Told you I'd be right behind. They emerged onto a hill overlooking the ruined spaceport. Below them, James's ship waited, dark and silent. Half hidden under metal scraps, Leary pointed, her face glowing with hope. Your ship. We made it! But before they could move, the sound of engines roared behind them. The guards had followed, their hover bikes rising over the ridge, beams of red light sweeping the ground. James grabbed Leary's hand, pulling her close. Run to the ship and don't look back. He turned, drawing his blaster once more. The first shot struck the lead guard, sending him spinning into the dirt. The others fired back, the air filling with streaks of red light. Leary ran ahead, dragging her weak mother toward the ship, tears streaking her dusty face as the ramp opened. The engines of the human craft flared to life. Lighting the night sky blue, James turned one last time, his eyes cold and determined. You wanted a human. You got one, he muttered under his breath, and fired. The sound of battle filled the hills. And for the first time in years, Vera's Edge saw what it meant when a human decided to fight. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for a promise he refused to break. The dawn that would follow would change everything. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the human ship roared to life. Its engines screamed against the night. Throwing blue fire and dust into the sky, Leary clutched her mother's hand, pulling her toward the open ramp while beams of red light sliced through the air behind them. Go, Leary, James shouted from behind, his blaster flashing again and again. Each shot struck with precision, knocking the guards off their hover bikes. Their screams echoed through the ruins as smoke filled the air. Leary's small legs burned from running, but she didn't stop. Sarah stumbled, her strength almost gone, yet she forced herself forward. The human's voice cut through the chaos like a promise she couldn't ignore. When they reached the ramp, the metallic platform hissed beneath their feet. James appeared seconds later, sliding onto the deck, slamming the ramp control. The doors sealed shut with a thundering clang. Hold on tight, he yelled, racing to the cockpit. Leary helped her mother sit, the ship shaking violently as the engines flared. Outside, explosions rattled the air. Guards fired plasma cannons from below, trying to bring the craft down. The ship lurched upward, engines groaning as it rose through smoke and fire. The world below them became a blur of orange and red. Come on, old girl, don't fail me now, James muttered. Gripping the controls, the ship, the horizon's edge, was old but loyal. He slammed the thrusters to full, and they shot toward the clouds. From the viewport, Leary gasped, watching the planet's surface fade away. We're flying, she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. James smiled faintly but kept his focus. We're not safe yet, he said. Those patrols will send fighters once they realize what happened. Sarah coughed weakly. You can still drop us off somewhere, she whispered. You've done enough, Captain. He turned his chair to face her, his eyes calm but steady. Not happening, he said. They'll track you, and they'll kill you both to make an example. I'm getting you off this planet, Leary blinked. Off this planet? To where? Somewhere safe, James replied, pulling a lever. The stars streaked past the glass as they entered the upper atmosphere. I know a station where no one asks questions. But just as relief began to settle, the ship jolted violently. The warning lights blinked red. Hostile lock detected, the ship's AI announced. Incoming pursuit, James cursed. They launched a gunship faster than I thought. Outside, streaks of red energy flashed past the window. Grazing the hull, the control panel sparked, and the ship shook violently. Hold together. Leary scrambled to fasten the belt around Sarah's waist. Her hands trembling, the ship dived sharply, the stars tilting in dizzying motion. Behind them, the alien gunship roared closer. Its cannons glowing bright, they won't stop, Leary cried. James's voice was calm but firm. They'll stop when they can't see us. He flipped a switch and panels on the ship's wings opened, releasing metallic pods that exploded into clouds of glittering chaff. The enemy fire scattered wildly as the radar scrambled. Then, with a deep breath, James pulled the lever marked Boost Risk Mode. The ship screamed forward, the stars bending, the light outside stretching into white streaks. For a few seconds, everything went silent except for the deep hum of the core engines. Leary held her mother tightly, whispering through tears, "We made it. We're flying through the stars," Sarah smiled weakly, her eyes glistening. "Humans really do touch the sky," she whispered. Just like the story said, when the shaking finally stopped, the stars outside looked calm again. Distant and peaceful, James leaned back, exhausted. His face was damp with sweat, but his eyes were steady. "We're clear," he said. "For now." Leary walked up behind him, her small hand gripping the back of his seat. "Captain," she said softly, "you saved us." He turned slightly, his expression unreadable. "You saved me first," he said. "If you hadn't picked up that wallet, I'd have left this planet without ever knowing." She tilted her head. "Knowing what?" He smiled faintly. "That some things are still worth fighting for." For a few quiet minutes, the only sound was the hum of the ship. Sarah closed her eyes and rested. Her breathing finally calm, Leary sat near the viewport, staring at the endless sea of stars. But then the ship's console beeped softly. James frowned and leaned forward. "That's strange," he muttered. "We've got a long-range signal following us. Is it the guards?" Leary asked quickly, fear creeping back into her voice. James shook his head slowly. "No, this one's human." He checked the transponder code and his eyes widened slightly. It wasn't just a random signal. It was a coded message from the human relief fleet, the same group he'd lied to earlier. The message blinked on the screen. "Captain Cole, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Unauthorized civilian extraction from Arvin 9 violates treaty law." James exhaled slowly. Staring at the blinking text, his jaw tightened. "They tracked me," he whispered. "They know what I did." Leary looked at him with wide eyes. "What will they do?" He turned to her with a calm, steady voice. "They'll try to take you away," he said. "But they're not going to." Sarah stirred weakly. "You'll risk your own people for us." James looked out at the stars, his face half lit by the console glow. "I've risked my life for less," he said quietly. "And lost more. I won't lose this." Far behind them, a human battleship emerged from the dark, its lights burning like a second sun. The game had changed now. It wasn't only the alien world that wanted them. It was the very people James once called his own. And the line between duty and mercy was about to blur forever. The stars burned cold and endless outside the cockpit. Yet inside the horizon's edge, tension hung thick as gravity. James stared at the blinking red message on the console, the emblem of the human relief fleet spinning slowly beside it. "Surrender immediately. You have violated interspecies protection law." He sat silent for a long moment, his jaw tight, his fingers tapping the side of the control panel. Behind him, Leary sat beside her mother. Both silent, both afraid, Leary whispered, "What does it mean?" James turned slightly, forcing a small smile. "It means some people don't understand what saving a life really looks like." Sarah's weak voice cut through the quiet. "You don't have to fight them," she said. "If your people catch us, maybe they'll let us live." He shook his head slowly. "They won't, Sarah, to them. You're a risk. An alien infected with a banned pathogen, they won't help you. They'll destroy you to keep others safe." Leary's eyes filled with tears. "But you're human too," she said, her voice breaking. "They'll listen to you, won't they?" James looked at her, and for the first time since they met, she saw real sadness in his eyes. "I used to believe that," he said quietly. "Not anymore." He stood up, moving to the back of the ship. The walls hummed faintly with power. He opened a small compartment and pulled out a metal case. Inside were 3 data chips, each glowing faint blue. "These," he said, holding one up, "contain the medical scans from your mother. If we can get to a free world lab, maybe we can find a cure." Sarah frowned weakly. "Free world?" He nodded. "There's a place beyond the human zone, Taraxis Station. It's a hub for traders, medics, and wanderers. No one cares who you are there. If we make it that far, we might have a chance." Leary looked hopeful again. "Then let's go there." James gave a faint smile. "That's the plan," he said. "But it won't be easy." He returned to the cockpit and began typing commands into the console. "I'm masking our ID signature," he said. "If they can't identify us, they can't track us outside." The void shifted as the ship veered toward the outer rim. The stars stretched in streaks of blue light as they jumped to hyperspeed. For a few minutes, everything was quiet. The engines hummed like a heartbeat through the floor. Leary leaned against her mother, whispering softly, "We're going to make it." "Mama," Sarah smiled faintly. brushing her daughter's hair. I hope so, little one. But peace never lasted long in James's world. A sharp tone cut through the silence, an incoming transmission. He frowned and opened the channel, expecting another threat, but instead, a familiar face appeared on the holographic screen. A woman in a sleek uniform, her dark hair tied back, her eyes sharp and filled with something colder than anger. Captain Cole, she said evenly. You've gone rogue again. James's chest tightened. Commander Varen, he muttered. Didn't expect you to be the one they'd send. Don't flatter yourself, she replied. You've broken 2 fleet laws and jeopardized diplomatic peace with the Virelong colonies. Turn over the civilians and surrender your ship. Civilians? He said bitterly. That's what we're calling dying mothers and children now. Her tone hardened. You know the quarantine laws, Cole. That species carries a mutagenic virus traced to human tech. You can't save them. James leaned forward, his voice low. Maybe not, but I can try. That's something you forgot how to do. Varen's expression flickered for just a second. Pain, or maybe regret. But she quickly hit it. You have 1 hour before we lock missiles. Don't make me chase you. The screen blinked off and the ship fell silent again. Leary's small voice broke the quiet. Is she going to hurt us? James stared at the stars. If she has to, he said. Yes, Sarah coughed softly. You shouldn't do this for us, she whispered. You'll lose everything. He turned to her, his face calm but his eyes burning. I already lost everything, he said. My crew, my home, my faith in what we stood for. Saving you is the first thing that's made sense in years. Leary stepped forward, her small hand touching his sleeve. Then we'll help you too, she said with quiet strength. I can fix small machines. I used to help Mama with tools. James smiled faintly. Then you're my co-pilot now. The ship shook slightly as they entered another lane of hyperspace. James checked the coordinates. Tirax's station was still 4 hours away, but hope flickered faintly inside them all. Later, when the others were asleep, James sat alone in the cockpit, watching the stars drift past. His mind replayed Varen's words. You can't save them, he whispered into the dark. Watch me. But deep in space, far behind the horizon's edge, the human fleet wasn't the only danger approaching. The alien gunship they had escaped from had also locked onto their trail. It carried a bounty crew, hunters paid by Vera's Edge to bring back the cursed alien woman and her child, dead or alive. As the ship drifted silently through hyperspace, unaware of the storm forming behind them, Leary's voice echoed faintly in her sleep. Don't leave us, Captain, she murmured. Please don't leave us, James looked back, his hand resting on the controls. Not this time, kid, he whispered. Not this time. Outside, the stars shimmered brighter, as if watching their small ship flee across the galaxy. A lone human carrying 2 lives between 2 worlds, chased by both, and guided only by the fragile light of his promise. The ship drifted through the black ocean of space, stars gleaming like cold fire outside the viewport. The hum of the horizon's edge was steady but strained, her old engines fighting the endless pull of gravity and fate. James sat at the console, one hand on the ship's lights dimmed until only the faint blue glow of the instrument panels remained. Outside, the endless stars dimmed behind streaks of passing dust and rock. Leary crept closer to the cockpit, her eyes wide. Will they hurt us? If they can, James replied, his voice calm but his hand tight on the throttle. But we're not giving them that chance. Through the darkened glass, the first hunter ship appeared, a sleek, black craft with crimson markings shaped like claws. Its engines pulsed with silent menace. 2 smaller vessels followed behind it like wolves shadowing prey. They're herders, James murmured, recognizing the formation. They'll try to box us in. He hit a button and the ship's defense panel slid into place. Leary, see that switch beside you? He said quickly. The one with the red light? She nodded, her small hands trembling. Yes, Captain. When I say now, flip it. Okay, she whispered. The radar screamed again, lock-on detected, James counted under his breath. 3, 2. A beam of light shot across the void, grazing the hull. The ship rocked violently, alarms blaring. Now! He shouted. Leary slammed the switch and the ship shuddered as a burst of electromagnetic energy exploded outward. The radar scrambled, and the nearest hunter ship's engine lights flickered out, spinning wildly into the debris field. Yes! Leary cried, her voice filled with excitement. Nice work, co-pilot, James said, forcing a grin. You just took down a professional killer. But the smile didn't last. Another hunter ship fired a barrage of plasma bolts, each impact rattling the hull. Sparks flew across the cabin, and the lights flickered. Sarah gasped, clutching her side. The ship, how long can it take this? Not long, James admitted, but long enough? He yanked the controls hard to the left, sending the ship diving into the asteroid field. Massive rocks drifted past them, spinning silently, some glowing faintly from mineral burns. Hold on, he shouted as the hull scraped against a passing stone. Leary clung to her seat, her eyes wide. They're following us. Let them, James said through gritted teeth. We're about to make it interesting. He scanned the terrain ahead. A cluster of dense asteroids glowing faintly red from geothermal energy. Perfect, he muttered. He pulled another switch, releasing a small pod from the underside of the ship. It drifted for a moment, then exploded into a flare of false heat signatures. The hunter ships locked onto the decoy instantly. Firing their cannons, the blast lit up the field like a storm, sending molten rock and debris spinning. Brace! James shouted. A shockwave hit them. Throwing the horizon's edge sideways, the alarms screamed. But the hunter ships behind them weren't as lucky. One vanished in a bloom of fire. The other spun off into the darkness, trailing smoke and sparks. The silence that followed was almost unreal. Only the soft hum of their engines breaking it. Leary's breathing slowed. Did we win? James leaned back, sweat beading on his forehead. We're still breathing, that counts as winning. Sarah smiled faintly. You're a dangerous man to follow, Captain. He chuckled softly. Yeah, but I get you where you need to go. Leary ran to the viewport, staring out at the fading fire of the wreckage. Her reflection shimmered against the stars. They're gone, she whispered. For now. James adjusted the navigation again. We'll reach Taraxis Station in less than 2 hours if the engines hold. But after that fight, they'll be burning hot. Sarah's voice was weak but calm. It's all right, Captain, whatever happens. You gave us a chance, he turned, his eyes softening. A chance isn't enough. We're going to finish this. But as he looked back to the console, his face changed. The radar flickered again. Not 3 dots this time, but one large one, much bigger, moving fast. That's no hunter, he said quietly. That's a fleet warship. Leary's heart skipped. Your people? James didn't answer right away. The silence said everything. Outside the window, a massive shape emerged from the shadows of the asteroid. But as relief settled in, the sensors began to beep again. Faint but certain. The fleet warship was descending through the storm after all. James's face hardened. Of course they wouldn't give up, he muttered. He turned to Sarah. They're coming. You and Leary need to get on the escape pod. Sarah shook her head weakly. You'll die if you stay. James smiled gently. Maybe. But if I leave, they'll never stop hunting you. Someone has to hold them here. He placed a small data chip in Leary's hand, glowing faint blue. This has your mother's medical scans and everything we found. Give it to the doctors on Taraxis. It's her cure. Your future. Leary's hands shook, tears running down her cheeks. No. Come with us. He brushed a tear from her face, his voice breaking slightly. You already saved me once, kid. Don't waste it. He helped them into the pod, sealing the hatch as the engines powered up. The small capsule hissed and detached, disappearing into the storm. As the fleet ship broke through the clouds above, its weapons charging, James sat in the cockpit alone. Staring at the endless lightning outside, he whispered to himself, for once. Let them see what being human means. He pulled a lever, overloading the reactor. The horizon's edge blazed bright as a sun, a single spark against the black. The explosion tore through the storm. A brilliant burst of light that shook the sky, far away in the escape pod. Leary looked back through the small window, tears streaming down her face, whispering, Goodbye, Captain. In that moment, across the stars, a legend was born. A story of a lone human who defied empires, fought fleets and gave his life not for war, not for power but for mercy and for a promise he never broke.